How's everyone doing today? Welcome back to On the Ball. Welcome back to more predictions for the brand new season. It is just around the corner. The Premier League starts this weekend and we are predicting our 1 to 20 in the Premier League. Me and Sim both given our individual predictions. So let's get straight into it and let's start off with 20. And Sim's gone for Sheffield United to finish bottom. I've gone for Luton. I mean, I don't think Luton have done the greatest business so far this summer. I know there's still, till the end of August to do business, but they just don't fill me with much confidence coming into the league, and I got a feeling they could take a few hidings this season.
The reason I've gone for Sheffield United bottom is because they've lost probably their two best players in Sander Berge and Ndiaye. Haven't really adequately replaced them. And I think Luton, we'll get into Luton in a bit, I just feel like they might have that, first season in the Premier League kind of bounce that some teams do. And I mean, I still have them. I'll get them. I'll see where we have them in a minute. But I just feel like Sheffield United were probably a bit of a surprise package to get promoted. Now lost their best players. I'm not so confident on their recruitment as well. So at the moment, I've got them to finish bottom.
Who's their manager, Sheffield United, this season?
Oh, I can't remember his name. Sheffield United manager. United manager, sorry. Paul Heckingbottom. Yeah. I mean, okay. Look, when we played them, they were tough to beat, and they obviously did get promotion in the end last season. But I just feel like I don't know if they're going to have it in them to sustain a Premier League charge to safety this
Fair enough. To be honest, I do think we've gone for the exact same relegation candidates. But let's move on to number 19, and we've both picked the same team for this one, and that is Wolverhampton Wanderers. All is not well at all at Wolves. I mean, the whole summer there's been talks about Julian Lopetegui leaving. He's finally left now. They do have Gary O'Neill, and to be fair, Gary O'Neill did go into Bournemouth last year, what looked like an absolute impossible task to keep them up, and he did do that, and he did it quite well. So I'm actually more confident that they might have a better season with Gary O'Neill at the helm. But having said that, they just haven't recruited at all. They've got rid of their best players in Ruben Neves, Raul Jimenez, and I think there's one more that's gone as well. But I really fear for Wolves this season because they looked poor last season, and this year without their star players, without any players coming in, I mean, you do have to fear the worst for them, to be honest.
The reason I don't see Gary O'Neill having as big of impact on Wolves as I did at Bournemouth is I think when he was at Bournemouth, he was already their assistant manager and he kind of took over and obviously did really well. But I feel like he already had respected the players before that, and he got that togetherness in the Bournemouth squad. To do that in a new club where they don't really know him as well is going to be a much more difficult job. And I just don't see where the goals are coming from right now. There's rumours of
Cunha. It's all relying on Cunha.
How many goals did he get last year? One. I don't see where the goals are coming from. They're not the most offensive team anyway. I think they've lost Nathan Collins, who was a good defender for them. As you say, Ruben Neves, who's a massive player for them. Adama Traore is also gone. I don't see where the quality is coming from for Wolves next season. And I don't see Gary O'Neill, as much as he did a great job for Bournemouth, I don't see him being good enough to keep this Wolves side up.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. And let's move on to the 18th spot, and it's just a reversal of 20 to 18 with me and Sim. Sim's gone for Luton. I've gone for Sheffield United. And pretty similar thinking with you and Sheffield United. They have lost key players. I'm not sure about the calibre and the quality of player they have brought in, and I feel that these two teams, Luton and Sheffield United, could just go straight back down.
Yeah, I do feel like they're right now, obviously it could be subject to change if anything moves in the transfer market. For example, they signed Ross Barkley yesterday. Maybe that could be a good move for them. But I think Luton are going to have a bit of a kind of new Premier League bounce, which a lot of these promoted teams do have, especially someone like a team like Luton who haven't been in the Premier League before. But I think what is really going to start to hit them second half of the season, once people start to work them out, once their quality, that over exuberance kind of dies down a bit, I find it hard for them to sustain a charge to stay up. So I've gone for Luton to go down.
Fair enough. Let's move on to 17th now. I've gone for Nottingham Forest. Sim's gone for Fulham. Nottingham Forest did finish 16th last year. They took a while to get to grips with the Premier League, but once they did, I think their home form was actually really good, and I think their home form is what is going to keep them up this season. In terms of the business they've done, they've brought in players like Anthony Elanga, Chris Wood, Matt Turner from Arsenal, Ola Aina from Torino, which is fairly good purchases, but I still think they're going to be in for a relegation battle, but I think they'll be good enough to stay up in the end.
Yeah, I went for Fulham. I do see them having a real struggle this season, and I even see a potential change of manager during the season if Marco Silva starts to get frustrated. Mitrovic isn't happy at the moment. He wants out, so what his performances are going to be like next season remains to be seen. They've replaced potentially brought in Raul Jimenez, and I don't think that is a signing that's going to get the goals required to keep them up. I think they massively overperformed last season. João Palhinha is out for an extended period of time as well, and he was such a massive player for them. You also got Willian, who was a big player from last season, and he seems to be up in the air whether he's going to stay as well. So unless I know they've signed Calvin Bassey from Ajax, that's a good signing, but they had a good defence last season. They overperformed going forward, and I see that kind of reverting this season, and I think they're going to get less goals. And I think if Marco Silva's future is up in the air a bit, whether he's going to stay, I see it being a very unhappy camp, and I see them struggling, but I do see them just about saving themselves.
How long's Palhinha out for?
Months, I believe.
Like 2 months, or like a significant amount of the season?
He's got a dislocated shoulder, I believe, in pre-season. I believe it's 2 months at the moment, but we'll have to wait and see. I believe 2 months.
Number 16, Sim's gone for Crystal Palace. I've gone for Everton. I mean, Everton have struggled in the league last couple of years. Sean Dyche in there now, saved them last year. With the transfer business that they have done, hasn't really filled me with much confidence that they are not in for a relegation battle this year. They brought in the likes of Arnaut Danjuma, Ashley Young, and some other players to boot that as well. But I think they will finish better than they did last season and have maybe more of a solid season than they did, but I still think that they're going to have problems with fighting the drop this season. Yeah,
I've gone for Palace. I think I'm not a massive fan of the Roy Hodgson appointment. I think they sacked him a couple of years ago for a reason. I think it was a mistake to bring him back. Yes, he kept them up last season, but even last season, I know they had a good end to the season, but he literally took them from 12th to 12th. I don't think he did anything Patrick Vieira couldn't have done last season, and they lost Wilfried Zaha, their talisman, potentially losing Michael Olise as well. Eze's future could be up in the air. If Olise leaves, where's Eze's head going to be at? Is he going to be able to carry that team next season to improve on last season? I don't think so. And I think Hodgson's negative tactics are going to get fans on his back again during the season, in my opinion. So I've got them to struggle, but I think Hodgson should have enough to keep them up.
Next up in 15th, it's a role reversal again. Sim's gone for Everton. I've gone for Crystal Palace. And my thinking is, I think that with finishing 11th last season, Crystal Palace, I think they are going to drop a bit without a talisman Zaha, which they haven't had. Zaha's been such a key figure for them for so many years now, and like you say, with potential Michael Olise leaving as well, I do think they're going to drop down the table. They won't get as many goals as they did last season, especially with Roy Hodgson at the helm all season. I got a feeling Roy Hodgson won't last the season either, to be honest. So I think Palace they're in for a poor season this year.
Yeah, I went for Everton. Obviously, stayed up by the skin of their teeth last season under Sean Dyche since he got appointed. I wouldn't say there was a massive improvement in performances, but definitely a bit of an improvement in results, which led to them staying up. I do like the signing of a Danjuma. I don't think someone like Ashley Young improves them, but what it does do is probably keeps the standards in terms of you get Ashley, and I don't think it progresses you, but maybe it helps you stay where you are. So that's why I'm leaning towards them not getting relegated. I do see another bit of a battle because I don't think they've made signings to improve their situation. They're still heavily relying on Calvert-Lewin staying fit. They're heavily relying on Dwight McNeil carrying on his really good form at the end of last season. Whether he can do that remains to be seen. I'm sure Sean Dyche will put in performances where they're going to be really hard to beat. So I'm sure they're going to grind out wins when they really need to. But I don't see them massively improving on last season's 17th finish. And I still think they're going to be in a bit of a relegation battle again.
Agreed. Let's move on to number 14 and both pick claret and blue teams to sit in 14th. Sim's gone for West Ham. I've gone for Burnley. And I know I said that Burnley are going to be my surprise package this season in the season, but I think 14th will be a really good finish for Burnley, to be honest, coming up from the Championship, playing the expansive football that they do under Vincent Kompany. And I'm really liking the look of them, and I think 14th will be a really good finish. I think they got some really under the radar players in that team that are going to surprise a few people this season. I think they'll provide some shock results throughout the season, but again, I don't think they'll be as consistent, or nowhere near as consistent, obviously, as they were in the Championship. So 14th for me.
I'm going for West Ham, albeit when I did make these predictions, they hadn't signed Ward-Prowse and Maguire and all Alvarez, who they've just announced at the time of filming. So I think I'm having known now these signings through the door, I might have them a bit higher, but I also think that Moyes had a brilliant season last season, winning the Conference League. They did struggle for a lot. They sold, now sold Declan Rice, Skamaka's gone, Paqueta's future is up in the air. So I don't think it's a great place right now. I think the fans were sick of Moyes last season in the league. So I do see that coming to a head again this season, if performances don't improve. I do think they've made some smart business with the money of Rice. So I guess I'll stick with my 14th position now. I do feel like with those signings, maybe a bit higher, but I see them having a bit of a struggle, and I see Moyes getting sacked during the season.
Yeah, I completely agree, to be honest. And I'm going to say pretty much exactly the same thing for 13th spot, which I've gone for West Ham and you've gone for Burnley, another role reversal. And yeah, I fear for David Moyes this season. I don't think he's going to last the season. They have made pretty good signings in the way that he likes to play, to be honest, with James Ward-Prowse, Harry Maguire, Edson Alvarez. I think they're all good signings, and they will be very dangerous from set pieces, as they always are, but this time they'll be even more dangerous. But I can't really see them mounting a European challenge or anything like that this season. I think they're just going to be sitting in mid-table or just below, and I think their European campaign might hurt their league campaign as well. So 13th.
Yeah, I've gone for Burnley simply because of Vincent Kompany. I really rate him as a manager, and I love the way he's got this Burnley team playing. I think they've done some good business in goal. James Trafford, the Amudani, the striker from Basel, looks like a real find. And Sander Berge from Sheffield United, we know is a very good central midfielder, and he was pretty good in the Premier League when he was last here. So I think that they're going to surprise a few people. I think they're going to play some good football. Obviously, I don't think they're going to make any inroads in terms of the top half, but I do see them comfortably staying out of the drop, and I think it could lead to Kompany getting a big move potentially in a year's time.
Moving on to 12th, Sim has gone for Nottingham Forest. I've gone for Fulham to sit in 12th, and the way I look at Fulham, it didn't look all rosy there a couple of weeks ago with Mitrovic potentially going to Saudi and Marco Silva going as well, but that hasn't materialised. Apparently Mitrovic has been reintegrated with the team now, and he is ready to start the season with Fulham. I really rate Marco Silva as a manager as well, so I've got a feeling they might not have as good of a season as they had last season. I do envisage some sort of drop-off, but I don't think it'll be a significant drop-off, and I think 12th is where they're going to finish.
I have gone for Nottingham Forest. In terms of the summer they've had, Elanga, Chris Wood, Matt Turner, Ola Aina through the door, which I think is some solid business. You've got to remember how many transfers they made last season, which was incredible amount. They all got to settle, and I think you only started to really see Forest putting in consistent performances later last season, which led them to safety. I do think Steve Cooper's a good manager, and I think he's going to start blending all that talent even more next season. I like the likes of Mangala and what's his name, Danilo in midfield as well. I think they're really nice players in midfield. Gibbs-White and Brennan Johnson gives them that, and Albioni gives them that threat in attack. So I see them improving on last season with the more time they've had to gel together, and I think Steve Cooper is going to be on the rise next season with Forest. So I've gone with them 12th.
All right, that's probably the biggest difference between me and you so far. I went for them just to beat the drop. You've gone for the mid-table, but something that is very similar between me and you is 11th spot, and that is Bournemouth. We've both predicted for 11th spot, and we both seem to envisage Bournemouth having a fairly good season. They've done decent business in the transfer market with Justin Kluivert, Favre, and Traore, but I think that they'll take their kind of good second half of the season last year and bring it into this season. It is a new manager with a slightly different style of playing, but I think the style of play that he's going to implement is really going to suit the squad, and I just envisage them to maybe pick up where they left off from last season and have a nice mid-table finish.
Yeah, I really like the appointment of Iraola, even though it was harsh on Gary O'Neill to get sacked, and a lot of raised eyebrows happened when that happened, but I think Iraola is a very smart piece of business from Bournemouth. I think he's going to make the team better than some of its parts from a footballing point of view. I think they're going to be a lot more attacking. I think it's going to suit the likes of Solanke up front. I like they've got wingers like Utara, they've got Traore, and I like some of the business. Justin Kluivert they've brought in from AS Roma, Roman Favre from Lyon. I think is a smart piece of business as well. So I think they're actually going to have a lot more talent than people realise. And people like Philip Billing is still there in the central midfield. Defensively, they're not as strong, but if they can do less defending and Iraola can get them to be more offensive and use their best talent, I can see them having a solid season and surprise a lot of people with a late charge for maybe a top half finish, but I've got them just to miss out on 11th.
All right, and another spot where me and Sim have gone exactly the same, if 10th position, and that is Brentford to finish in 10th. They did finish 9th last season, so slight bit of a drop-off, but, I mean, the top 10 this year in the Premier League is just unbelievably strong, so it's no real indictment on Brentford why I've gone for them in 10th. I just think that everyone above them, I just can't see Brentford finishing above them, and Tony is out until January, which is a massive loss for them. I think Wissa and Mbeumo really did pick up the pieces in the latter stages of last season when Tony was out, but it remains to be seen if they can do that over a long stretch of time. So I do envisage that potentially in the first half of the season, they will be a bit more inconsistent, but still pick up good results. I still envisage them to be maybe in the top half at that point. But I think when Tony comes back, I think they'll really kick on and have a strong end to the season.
Yeah, I think Brentford should be all right in terms of being in the top half this season. I really like some of that. I like Shardo last season. I thought at the end of last season he was looking bright on the wing and he was quite decent. Nathan Collins from Wolves, I think he's a decent centre-back signing as well, help shore up that back line. And I think Brentford, just their way of playing is so hard to play against, especially when they have Tony back and available. I think they're going to give teams a lot of trouble. I think Mbeumo is improving season on season. I think he's set to improve yet again this season. So I think that under Thomas Frank, it's just one of those clubs where I think if they can keep Thomas Frank there, they're going to be okay. And I think another top half finish for them.
You know, I got a feeling with Thomas Frank, like if he goes anywhere after Brentford, I just feel like he won't get those same heights and same out of the players as he did at Brentford. He's like one of those managers that just fits that club like a glove.
It's like Alan Kirbishley at Charlton or Sam Allardyce at Bolton. It's like one of those
exactly,
kind of fits.
Exactly how I feel about him. But let's move into the top half now. 9th spot, Sim's gone for Brighton. I've gone for Aston Villa. And my reasoning behind Aston Villa is I'm really liking the look of the business that they've done. They have done unbelievable business so far from what I've seen. Top talent has come in there, no doubt about it. But with them in the Conference League this year, I think they're going to make a real good fist of that Conference League. And my prediction is actually they go and win that Conference League. No spoilers, by the way, for the next video. But I think that they will have a good campaign in the league this year, but as they get deeper and deeper into Europe, I think their league form will drop off, and that will show in the league standing. So I've gone for them in 9th.
I've gone for Brighton. As much as they're so good at replacing players they've sold, I mean, there always is a limit into how many players you can sold without some inconsistencies coming to the fore. And they've sold McAllister. Looks like Caicedo could be out the door. Sanchez, the keeper, obviously he played first half of the season last season. He's now been sold. So again, it's more upheaval for Brighton to deal with. And yes, they've made some really smart signings as they always have. I like the signing of João Pedro. I like the signing of Dahoud as well in midfield. So I do think they won't be a problem when it comes to a massive decrease in performance. But you add Europa League football into the mix, which is very competitive European football, which I expect them to take really seriously. I expect a bit more inconsistent performances coming into the Premier League. Not to say I'm sure they'll have loads of performances where they're dazzling and being brilliant, but I think when games are coming thick and fast, I think we're going to see a bit more inconsistency. So I've gone for them to finish 9th.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, to be honest, and that's why I've gone for them to finish in 8th. And another role reversal, Sim has gone for Villa in 8th. I've gone for Brighton in 8th, and I think that I'm impressed with Brighton. I really like De Zerbi as a manager, but they are losing some more key players this summer, and with Europa League football, I think a drop off from 6th to 8th won't even be a bad season for Brighton, to be honest. And I think that when you're looking at the Europa League campaign, I don't think Brighton go as deep in the Europa League as Villa go in the Conference League, and I think that might stand Brighton in better stead going into the last stages of the season. So I envisage that Brighton do pip Aston Villa in the later stages of the season to that 8th space.
Yeah, the reason I've gone for Aston Villa, even though I agree with you, I think they got a really great shot at the Conference League, and I envisage them going really deep in that competition. I actually think Unai Emery, especially, first of all, great signings, Tielemans, Pau Torres, Moussa Diaby, and potentially more coming through the door as well. I think they've done some really smart business to play exactly how Unai Emery wants to play. They were brilliant second half of last season as well. And I actually think compared to Brighton, I feel like the way Emery plays, even when they're not playing well, he's going to be more likely to grind out a few results, like 1-0 or such, rather as I feel like Brighton really need to be playing well to win games. When they're a bit off it, all of a sudden they can be a bit opened up and it's going to be a struggle for them to get results. So I envisage Villa's European campaign affecting them, but I don't see it affecting them as much in Brighton as opposed to you. So I've gone for them to finish 8th. And I agree, I think they got a great shot of winning the Conference League, especially with Emre's record in Europe.
Next up in 7th spot, again, we've gone for the exact same team in 7th spot, and that is Newcastle United. After a stunning season from them last season, getting Champions League football, I think that Champions League football will catch up with them this season. And with only bringing 2 real notable signings in, Harvey Barnes and Tonali, they have brought in Livramento as well, which will play back up to Kieran Trippier. I'm just not sure if their squad is deep enough to play at a high level week in, week out in the Premier League, in the 2 domestic competitions and in the Champions League. So I think 7th spot is where I'm going to put Newcastle.
Yeah, I agree. I think they've added depth, but I actually don't think their first team is good enough to sustain a top 4 challenge when you've got the likes of Tottenham and Chelsea not in Europe next season playing 1 game a week. Newcastle are going to have to split their attentions with the Champions League, and that's going to take a massive toll on them, in my opinion. And I think there was a big overperformance from a lot of players in it last season. Playing 1 game a week could really help them. Whether they can sustain that going into this season. For example, Almiron, is he going to go on as mad a run this season he did last season? I've got my doubts. Things like that. So I've gone for Newcastle to have a drop off, but I do actually think they might, not a good run, but I can envisage them maybe getting out the group stage in the Champions League and giving that a good go. But I think that's going to affect their league form. Yeah. So I've gone for them to finish 7th.
Yeah. Have we just gone for the same table pretty much? 6th, we've both gone for Chelsea. And look, I think Chelsea had an absolutely disaster class season last year. 3 different managers in Potter, Tuchel and Frank Lampard. With Poch at the helm this season, look, we know firsthand exactly what Poch could do. And I think the squad he has there, the calibre of player, the exact calibre of player and style of player that Pochettino loves to work with, to be honest. And I think if they sort out their midfield with no Europe this season, I think they can have a really good season. I think 6th, going from where they were last season to this year in 6th, I think will be a good return for Chelsea, and I could see them maybe winning a cup tournament as well.
A lot of people are gassing up Chelsea at the moment, saying they're dark horses for top 4, and I've seen even some people suggest they could be in a title race with 1 game a week. But I know Pochettino is going to bring some stability. They've made massive changes in the squad, and I think it's going to benefit them. But I'm looking at their team on paper. I don't know if there's enough quality right now. First one, centre mid, albeit they might sign. It looks like they're going to sign Lavia, so that will definitely help with that. I'm looking at the forward line. It's a very, very young forward line, and yes, it's going to bring energy. But when they really need to get results and they need that clinical edge, is that forward line going to bring it for them? Nkunku's out for 6 months, or 3.5 months, 4 months. That's a massive blow to them, because he was probably even though he's young, he's one of their most experienced players in the forward line, and he's out for a long time. Do I see Mudryk, Jackson, Madueke putting in consistent performances enough to get a top 4 finish? I just don't. And I think they'll have games where they ball it out, but I think when games are coming thick and fast and they have to churn them out very quickly, I have my doubts whether they're going to consistently be able to put teams away with that kind of forward line, in my opinion. So I've gone to them to finish 6th.
But I will say that Pochettino will value that time on the training ground this year without any European football, and he'll probably reap the benefits of it, to be honest. But I do feel like this is like a learning season for Pochettino, and he's going to get all the bad habits and all the bad things out the squad, what he doesn't want to see for next season. And I think the season after this season, Chelsea are going to be very dangerous. But I think right now they've just got way too many players that are new to the league, way too many players that are really young as well. So I do see some inconsistencies for sure. Next up, we're going to go to 5th spot, and that is going to go to Tottenham for both of us. Me and Tim both predicted Tottenham. Obviously, when this prediction was made, Harry Kane was staying at Spurs. We have accepted a bid at time of recording. He hasn't gone as of yet, but right now it looks as though he is about to depart. But I think that with Ange Postecoglou, with the new system we're about to implement, I think that the players that we do have and the squad that we do have are more settled and more experienced in the Premier League than maybe what Chelsea have. So I think that will do us better than Chelsea in that sense. We don't have European football as well. So I think 1 day a week Postecoglou will really value that. And I really envision Spurs to have an exciting and good season, and 5th spot gets Champions League as well.
Exactly. So I think, I kind of agree. I think if Harry Kane stays, I'm much more confident of Tottenham finishing 5th and potentially 4th. If Harry Kane doesn't stay, I think it's going to be more of a fight for 5th and potentially 6th. And I think we might struggle to hit that 5th place spot. But I still looking at Tottenham's squad. I really like the signing of Maddison. We finally kind of signed a centre back in Van der Ven to solve that problem. I really like that. Basuma looks like a new player as well in the central midfield. I think in the forward line, hopefully Sonny starts hitting back to his best. I really think adding that creativity in Maddison is going to be a massive, massive boost for Tottenham in the race for top four. And I think Ange is already getting to grips with how he wants his Tottenham team to play, and I think we're already seeing that. So I think, although it might be a rocky start, I can see Tottenham getting to that fifth place.
All right, let's move on to the top four now. And Sim's gone for Manchester United in fourth. I've gone for Liverpool in fourth. And the reason I've gone for Liverpool to finish below Manchester United is because I worry about Liverpool's defence this season. You've got an ageing Van Dijk who didn't have the best of seasons last year, and the cover behind Van Dijk and Konate isn't the strongest, to be honest, with Joel Matip and Joe Gomez, who haven't covered themselves in glory over the past year. I think Liverpool are an easy team to score goals against and get at last season, albeit I think that their attack is going to be the thing that pulls them into that top four and really makes them have an exciting and good season. And their midfield options as well, I think right now it's looking good. They're looking to potentially sign another player there in that position too, which I think it will improve them on last season, but I don't think it's going to be good enough to put them in the top three, not this season anyway, but it's a good building block for the next season.
I've gone for Man United to finish fourth. I think they should have enough with the signings they made to get top four. I think Onana is a great signing. It looked like they're going to sign a centre-back as well. They kept the most clean sheets in the league last season. That's a good building block to start from. I'm just not so sure with the forward options right now. I think Mason Mount, a signing midfield, is a good signing, but does that move the needle massively for them? I'm not 100% sure. I think the forward line, they got Rashford, Anthony, Højlund's got an injury, so we don't know when he's going to be back. Sancho's obviously looking to recover his best. I like the forward line, but I just don't think it compares to the teams above them right now. So and obviously got another Champions League campaign coming up. I think they're going to have a decent season, maybe if they can win one of the cups, but I don't see them improving on last season at the moment. So I've gone for them in fourth.
Yeah, I don't really see them improving on last season either. So I have gone for them in third to sit in the same spot as they did finish last season. Sim's gone for Arsenal in third. And my thinking behind Manchester United, I mean, their business has been good this summer, to be honest. I've liked their business. Højlund has got an injury, so he's out for the first part of the season, which he wouldn't want to do because he needs to get to grips with the Premier League very fast, because he looks like their only proper recognised number 9 in the squad as of yet, unless they sign someone else from now until the end of the window. But with the business that they have done, I think they all are going to buy into the way Erik ten Hag plays. I think they're all adequate for his system as well. I actually got a feeling Mason Mount might have a better season this year than he did last year for Chelsea too, in the system that Erik ten Hag is deploying. And with Ten Hag's second year as well, with a few players that were a bit hit and miss last year, like Anthony and Jadon Sancho, I think with a year behind their belt under Ten Hag, they'll come on leaps and bounds this year, and I expect both of them to have strong seasons, to be honest. So I think with them improving is enough just to keep them in third.
I've gone for Arsenal in third, just because I think Champions League football for that young squad is going to take its toll, in my opinion. I think there was a big overperformance in a lot of games last season. If you look at their expected points, I think it was about 72, and they ended up getting, I think, 84. So I think they got a lot more points maybe than they should have last season. I think that will revert a bit. I know they've made some great signings. Declan Rice is a really good signing. Kai Havertz as well. Remains to be seen how well he does. Jesus has got an injury at the moment. I'm still not sure about the striking position, whether they have enough in that position. Like last season, to sustain that overperformance. I like the signing of Julian Timber as well, but I just feel like, in a weird way, they had Partey, Odegaard and Xhaka last season. That gave really good balance in the midfield. This season, it's going to be Rice. It remains to be seen if Partey is going to be there. If Partey stays, maybe I can see them sticking with second. But if Partey leaves and that balance of midfield goes to Rice, Odegaard and Havertz, I think it's going to take a lot of working out for them to get the right balance there. And I think there's going to be some teething problems with that midfield. I think defensively, they're looking decent, but I still think on the wing backs you can get at them. And I think at the end of last season that was shown. But I still think their signings will be good enough, even with Champions League football, to sustain a top 4 challenge. I think they'll get it with ease. But I don't see them being in the title race like they were last season, in my opinion. So I've gone for third.
Yeah, I actually don't see there being much of a title race this year, to be honest. I think that second, I've gone for Arsenal in second, by the way, and Liverpool, Sim's gone for Liverpool. And my thinking behind Arsenal in second, I do think that with the signings that they have made, they've added really good depth to their squad, especially in defence. And I do think that they will bring in maybe one more player in that front line just before the end of the transfer window. So I actually think that it might take Rice a bit of time to get to grips with the way Arteta wants to play. And I do think that, you know, they'll have a really good season and finish in second, but I don't see it being as strong as last season. And I think there's going to be a much bigger gap from 1 to 2 this year than there was last year.
I think Liverpool are going to be in the title race this season. I've gone for them to finish second. I think there's going to be a massive improvement from last season, especially given that they could be on the cusp of signing Caicedo, which would be a massive signing for them. I think if they get that midfield right, I think it's going to make their defence look a lot better than they did last season. And I think their forward line is absolutely dynamite. I think it's up there with the best forward lines in Europe. I think I love pretty much every player who's in that forward line for Liverpool. I think the signings of McAllister and Szoboszlai are game changers, and especially if they can get a defensive midfielder in there as well. I think Klopp knows how to take on City. He's done it before. I think if anyone's going to get drive them close, it's going to be Liverpool for me, and I really like the business they've done.
And last but not least, which is no secret, who we think is going to win the league next season, and that is Manchester City for the 4th time in a row. A bit of a one-team league we're turning into here, but I think Man City, there are maybe a few more question marks this year than there have been over the past couple of years. First of all, because there's been a lot of upheaval. And second of all, it's just like the four years in a row has never been done before. So if you didn't think Man City were one of the best Premier League teams of all time, if they do go and win this 4th team in a row, does that seal them and deliver them as the best Premier League team of all time?
I think so. I think you could probably argue they're already there, but I've gone for them to win the league, obviously. It's so hard to look past them when they've got just total control. They're winning league after league with ease. They're adding even more players, Gvardiol to the back line as well, which is going to make them even more solid at the back.
How is anyone going to score against them?
It's just going to be crazy. Kovacic, they've added in midfielder, I think is a very smart signing. I think there are more signings to come because I think they still have to replace Mahrez in the attack. And look, Haaland is just bagging goals for fun time and time again. De Bruyne is doesn't look like slowing down at the moment. The only thing that can maybe hurt them is the amount of games that they're set to play probably again after winning the treble last season, winning all those games. If they don't make add some more depth in my book, I think they might struggle to sustain the amount of games they did last season.
Remember, they got the Club World Cup as well this season.
Exactly, Club World Cup is a good point. So I think they need a couple more signings, but look, it's Man City. I back them to get those signings, and I think again they'll win the Premier League yet again.
I do think it's a slight drop off in midfield when you replace Gundogan with Kovacic, because I rate Kovacic, but that just shows how much I rate Ilkay Gundogan, and the amount of times he pulled it out the bag for them and got goals in the last minute where they were drawing games, and the amount of points he wins alone. To be honest, in clutch games for Man City, I do think they're going to miss that, but I don't think that's going to stop them winning the league.
If they do get Paquetá, though,
yeah,
that'll be a brilliant replacement.
Yeah, I agree. But that is our 1 to 20. Let's go through it one more time. Let's go to the bottom half of the table. My bottom half, starting with the bottom 20th, is Luton, Wolves, Sheffield United, Nottingham Forest, Everton, Palace, Burnley, West Ham, Fulham and Bournemouth.
And mine is Sheffield United, Wolves, Luton, Fulham, Palace, Everton, West Ham, Burnley, Forest and Bournemouth. So very similar.
It's too similar.
Way too similar. We did this very separately and we didn't see each other's league tables beforehand. So it's eerily similar, I should say.
And if you thought the bottom half was similar, let's check out the top half again, because this is literally like team for team. Both of us went for Brentford. Then I went for Villa and Brighton. You went for Brighton and Villa. Mm-hmm. Both of us went for Newcastle. Both of us went for Chelsea. Both of us went for Tottenham. Then I went for Liverpool. You went for United. This is the only real difference.
Fair, yeah, the second, third, and fourth are fairly different.
But it's still the same top four, though, isn't it?
It is the same top four, yeah.
I went for Man U in third. You went for Arsenal. I went for Arsenal in second. You went for Liverpool, and then obviously we both went for Man City. But It's actually quite bit freaky how it's like so similar.
so weird. But look, it's so hard to call this with the how competitive the Premier League is now. That top half, every team you're looking at their teams like, oh, they're a good team. That's a good team. Good manager. Everyone seems settled now, and even the teams who were a disaster last season, like Chelsea and Spurs, hopefully they have showing signs of getting their act together as well. So I think it's set to be one of the most competitive Premier Leagues ever.
And yeah, I completely agree. And everyone talks about the top 6 this, the top 6 that. It seems like it's like the top 9 now. Like, I wouldn't be totally surprised if Villa and Brighton both have really good seasons and they could like push their way into that top 7, you know?
Yeah.
So the top 9 in the Premier League are the strongest I've ever seen.
Apart from, I mean, I'm looking at that bottom half. I'm like, who's going to break it? Who's going to break that top half?
Yeah.
Like maybe West Ham with their new signings potentially now. Bournemouth could underestimate them. Maybe they could make a break for it. But
if Brentford have a really strong first half of the season, potentially
they could break the top 9.
Yeah,
potentially. But I'm looking at them who's in the bottom half. I just can't see any of them getting in the top half, apart from maybe West Ham or Bournemouth.
And you would say that probably 11th down, anyone could go down. You wouldn't be surprised if any of those teams go down.
Yeah, and yeah, it's very true. I'm looking at the teams at the bottom. As much as I'm looking at the top half teams, are like, oh, they're all good teams. I'm looking at the bottom half, I'm like, Everton, not great. Like, I'm looking at Fulham. They got a lot of problems right now. It's like, there's not much there. I'm just worried for a lot of those teams down at the bottom. They could all go down.
Yeah, absolutely. So it promises to be an unbelievable season in the Premier League this year. It's almost like, I know we did top half and bottom half, but everyone in the bottom half are in it together, and everyone in the top half are kind of in it together. We can't really say Villa and Man City are in it together, but you get what I'm trying to say. But that is our 1 to 20. Let me know your 1 to 20 in the comments section below. Like, subscribe, and comment, and we'll see you next time.